All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to demystify the incredibly complex journey of transforming those rigid, clunky legacy applications into agile, massively scalable, cloud-native SaaS platforms. Look, if you've ever wrestled with bulky, monolithic systems, you know exactly how painful scaling can be, right? It's a headache. So we're breaking down a proven playbook using the eMACH framework on AWS. Think of this as your architectural masterclass for systematically dismantling those old monolithic constraints and building something that's literally built for the future.
So here's our playbook for the transformation. We'll start with the legacy cloud dilemma, move on to decoding the eMACH framework, look at replatforming versus re-engineering, map out the 5-phase modernization roadmap, and finally wrap up with the AWS target solution architecture.
All right, starting with section 1, the legacy cloud dilemma. The reality of the whole monolith problem is just stark. As it says here, legacy applications were not designed for the cloud. They grew in data centers where scaling meant bigger hardware and microservices were a theoretical concept. And man, that really hits the nail on the head. In that old paradigm, you couldn't just spin up more compute. Scaling literally meant buying bigger, much more expensive physical hardware. Every single change carried a massive amount of risk. Moving quickly? Yeah, that just wasn't an option. But look at where we are today. The modernization imperative is absolutely undeniable. Companies have to move fast. You've got to be able to scale globally at the drop of a hat, especially since you're competing every single day with cloud-native startups that have literally zero technical debt. To survive now, you absolutely need AI-powered experiences, you need low-latency responsiveness, and you need incredibly clean, fast APIs. You just can't deliver modern, intelligent applications on yesterday's restricted hardware. No way.
Which brings us to section 2, decoding the eMACH framework.
Enter eMACH. This is a real game changer, and I want to deliberately spell out this acronym for you because it's essentially the foundational blueprint for dismantling your monolithic constraints. Ready? E stands for events-driven. M is for microservices-based. A is for API-first. C is for cloud-native. H is for headless. And underlying the whole shebang is embedded AI. It's this revolutionary composable paradigm that lets you mix and match different technology components to meet specific business needs, right when you actually need them.
Okay, so looking at this mapping, the crucial point here is that these pillars aren't just fancy technical jargon. When you map them directly to business outcomes, the real-world impact is obvious. Adopting an events-driven model, you get real-time responsiveness. Moving to microservices, you isolate your failures and radically accelerate your time to market. Taking an API-first approach instantly expands your ecosystem, while a cloud-native architecture slashes your operational overhead. Then you have a headless setup, decoupling the front end from the back end, which empowers true omni-channel delivery. And of course, embedded AI brings intelligent automation right into your everyday workflows. This is a very conscious pivot from rigid infrastructure to a living, breathing system.
Let's move on to section 3, replatforming versus re-engineering.
So if we look at the famous 7 R's framework for cloud migration, the two really vital paths for our SaaS journey are replatforming and re-engineering, which you'll sometimes hear called refactoring. Replatforming is basically targeted cloud optimizations to reduce overhead, like simply moving a database to a managed service without doing a full code rewrite. It's a quick win, but, well, it's limited. On the flip side, re-engineering is where the real magic of eMACH happens. This means significantly modifying your architecture to unlock microservices and immense scalability. Figuring out when to grab the quick wins of replatforming versus when to fully break down that monolith is absolutely crucial for keeping your business running smoothly while you innovate.
Okay, on to section 4, the 5-phase modernization roadmap.
Now, the full roadmap does contain 5 phases, but I want to highlight the real critical turning points for us here. We actually start by capturing immediate value early on in phase 2, establishing what we call a replatforming foundation using AWS managed services. Think ECS Fargate for your containers and RDS Aurora for your databases. Once that foundation is rock solid, we evolve into phase 4, which is headless architecture deployment. This is exactly where we decouple the presentation layer and implement tenant-aware routing, usually using AWS Cognito. And finally, in phase 5, we hit continuous evolution. This is sort of the promised land, right? Automated progressive deployments, canary releases, and gradual traffic shifting. You don't just jump to phase 5 on day 1, it's a strategic, step-by-step build.
And finally, section 5, the AWS target solution architecture.
Now here is where eMACH truly comes to life. What you're looking at is a production-grade target state architecture. Over on the left edge, you've got your security layer with Route 53 and AWS WAF locking down the client channels.
Traffic then flows through the API first layer, powered by Amazon API Gateway and AppSync. Right at the center sits your headless backend. These are your fine-grained microservices running on ECS or Lambda. Notice that polyglot persistence data layer underneath it? It uses Aurora for relational data and DynamoDB for NoSQL, which is perfectly suited for tenant isolation. And over on the right, you have the embedded AI layer powered by Amazon Bedrock and SageMaker. It's just a beautifully comprehensive blueprint that leverages AWS's 200-plus services to achieve massive global scale.
But to make that massive diagram actually function flawlessly, we're relying on three very crucial architectural decisions. First up is event-first communication, which prevents tight coupling and boosts your resiliency. Next is the strangler fig pattern. I love this one. Think of an actual strangler fig in nature. It's a vine that slowly, organically grows around an older tree until it completely replaces it. That is exactly how we handle legacy code. We completely avoid dangerous large-scale cutovers. Instead, we gradually migrate functionality to new microservices while keeping the legacy monolith available, just slowly starving the old system out over time. And the third key decision is how we actually handle multi-tenant SaaS isolation.
So to really understand these SaaS isolation models, let's use a quick real estate analogy to make these abstract cloud concepts a bit more tangible. The pool model, that's like an apartment building. It's shared infrastructure for maximum cost efficiency, which is absolutely perfect for your standard tier customers. Then you have the silo model, which is like a detached single-family home. It's completely dedicated, totally isolated infrastructure reserved for those high-paying enterprise customers who demand incredibly strict data boundaries. And sitting right in between is the bridge model, which is kind of like a row of townhouses. You share the underlying land, the compute, but you have your own completely isolated walls and databases. Picking the right mix here is how you find that perfect sweet spot between economic efficiency and enterprise-grade security.
Look, the organizations that truly master this playbook are going to definitively lead their markets. They'll be leaving their rigid, monolithic competitors firmly in the dust. But getting there requires a major mindset shift. You really have to ask yourself, is your modernization just a one-time destination, or are you actually building an ongoing capability to adapt, scale, and evolve? The eMACH framework on AWS absolutely gives you that capability. The rest, well, that's up to you. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this deep dive helps you architect a far more resilient and scalable future.